we are in the middle of chapter 4, or epistle 4, letter number 4. It's page 210. And, yep, here we're going to start. Okay. So we're discussing in this letter the idea how tzedakah is the ultimate tool, path, method to get to redemption. It says, the Rambam quotes, the Alter Rebbe quotes the Rambam, Ein Yisrael Negolan Ela B'Tzedakah. The Jewish people will only be redeemed in the merit of tzedakah. But to understand why tzedakah, how does tzedakah bring redemption? I mean, every mitzvah brings redemption. Every time we do a mitzvah, every time we do an act of kindness, it brings redemption closer. So we said that we were going to explain the idea of the heart, that the heart has the inner part of the heart, the exterior part of the heart, different ways that a person can have love that comes from a logical conclusion. I think about something and it makes me love it, or love because that's my identity. Love is myself. Just to explain a metaphor of this love, this idea, sometimes you get an invitation to a wedding and you're deciding, should I go to the wedding or not? The wedding's in Chicago, the wedding's in New York, and you know the person fairly well, you see him a lot. Should you go? Should you not go? You know, it's expensive, the ticket, the fly, you got to take off a day of work or 2 days of work, depending where you're going to. You start making all these calculations, you will go, you won't go. And you finally make a decision that, you know what, I'll go, or I won't go. So it's a whole process of intellectual or thinking process. Should you or should you not go to the wedding? If someone asks you, you could say, I haven't decided yet. I'm thinking about it. Imagine it's your daughter's wedding. And someone says, do you plan to go to the wedding? I don't understand the question. I don't know, do you think about it? It's a lot of time off work. You got to pay for the traveling. It's a lot of investment. So the answer is, I didn't even think about it because it's not a question. What does that mean? There are certain parts of ourselves that don't have a question involved because, yes, I'm going to my child's wedding because I didn't think about it. I don't have to ask myself, did I calculate the cost of it? I can tell you right now, I'm going. I mean, God willing, all healthy wise. So in other words, what's that calculation? It's not a rational decision. A rational decision would be, let me see if it makes sense. How much time does it take? How much would you be offended if I didn't come? If I did go, what my part would be? How is it? Okay, I'll go. No, my kid's wedding, I'm going. A guy in the office, someone in the shul, someone in the community, a second cousin, they start making calculations. And a first cousin and a close friend, you also make calculations. You know what? I thought about it. I really should go to this wedding. Because I missed last wedding, I have to go to this one, you know. So what does that mean? There's a relationship that's based on logic. It makes sense because it's to me. I went to the wedding because, you know what? It means a lot to that person. Then there's weddings you go to just because it's your kid's wedding or your own wedding for that matter. You're going to it because what's the question? Of course I'm going to be there. You know what? I'll do my phone. Yeah, call it in, Uber it over. So this is true in our relationship with Hashem and with everything. There's our true self, our real true self, and then there's our exterior self. Our exterior self is possible to change. It's possible to be different. And in one day, it's possible to have conflicting things that I do. I do things, for an example, I exercise every day because it's important to me. And I also like eating fried chicken because I really like it. Make up your mind, do you care about your health or not? I really do, but I like fried chicken, so I exercise. In other words, I could do things that are decisions based on things that are outside of us, so therefore they could be conflicting. But when it comes to things that are your life, things that are your essence, it's not a discussion because it's going to be one way. I either love this or I don't love this. I can't say, well, today I really love my kids, and tomorrow, and yesterday. No, you could have your kids get you frustrated. They can make you pull your hair out. You can lose sleep at night, but you can't change your love because things that are deep are part of you. Unfortunately, in deep relationships, sometimes in real relationships, there's a deep part that's concealed. That deep truth, you could act to a spouse sometimes in a way which is shocking to yourself. Why did I say that yesterday? You could act to a parent, to a child that way. How could I have said that? Does that mean I don't love her? No. Or him? You know what that means? It means you weren't thinking. Well, you have a lot of trauma and issues you got to deal with. Something's getting in the way. But no one has to come and convince you. Let me tell you why you should love your mother. Let me tell you why you should love your child. No one has to do that. All you got to do is move the trauma, the issues, the frustrations, the baggage, the stress, and automatically it's there. The technical term we use it's in exile. Your true self is not where it should be. Your true self is in exile. So in other words, when we talk about your true identity, and we had a question, how is it that some people don't, if every single Jew has this truth, this Pintele Yid, my true self, why don't I see it? Why don't I feel my love to God? Why don't I feel my love to my mother? I mean, I find it frustrating. I'd rather she didn't, not to my mother, God forbid, talk about the concept. I'd rather she didn't come over and visit, you know? It's because I am right now dealing with lots of issues, and my true relationship, unfortunately, if there was an emergency right now, everything would drop on the floor and you'd run. But there's no emergency, so you're able to live with the layers and layers. Sometimes there's like a smack in the face that wakes you up. Whoa, I heard someone, this guy said, my mother had a heart attack. You're on the way to the hospital. I thought you'd like to visit her. She's my mother. So there's the relationships that are hidden. So what we're really talking about here in this chapter is Geula. We're giving Geula a different relation. To appreciate this a step further, because the whole point of this chapter is to explain how does charity bring redemption. So first we have to understand what is redemption. And that's what we've been doing the last 2 or 3 weeks in this class, talking about our true selves, our deeper selves, our above rational selves, our above logic selves. And that's going to be when Mashiach comes. We're going to live above rationale. We're not going to have a love that comes with effort. It's all going to be natural. We'll see God. In other words, what's the definition? You know, is in Hebrew, we have certain words that we use a certain way, but truthfully, they're not exactly used correctly. And it's no language is this way. In Hebrew, there's a word called galus. Galus means exile. But the truth is, it's not really the right word to say exile. Galus means the exile of. Like Galus Bavel, the exile of the Babylonians. Galus Paras, the exile of this. The Galus Mitzrayim, exile of Mitzrayim. So really the right word for just the noun of Galus, of what we call Galus, is Gaila. The word's Gaila. And what's interesting is, in 1991, the Rebbe began, even though for all the years, the Rebbe spoke a lot about Mashiach, tremendously, all the siras, all the talks, but from 1991 until his stroke, the last 11 months that the Rebbe was speaking to us, the Rebbe started pushing Mashiach and pushing Mashiach and pushing Mashiach, and some people were nervous. I've been working on my business deal for a long time. I'm about to buy my first house. Why don't do Mashiach now on me? Don't pull Mashiach now. You could have done it last year when I had trouble. This year things are going together. There's a story, which is actually a cute story, but it's a real story, of Nachum of Chernobyl. Nachum of Chernobyl, I think it was with him, that he was traveling, and he was one of these really holy people. And he travels, he comes to some little village somewhere in Poland or in Ukraine. And in those days, you'd have to, it was Poland or Ukraine anyway. It was all the wars. But Poland, somewhere there. And he's staying in this little bed and breakfast owned by a Jewish sweet couple. And as is customary for very pious people, you get up at midnight and you sit on the floor and you cry for the destruction of the temple. It's a custom. It's called Tikkun Chatzos. Today we don't do it because of many reasons. Amongst them, it will destroy our next day of function. We couldn't have a headache-free day by getting, because after you were done, you wouldn't go back to sleep. You would stay and study and pray, and you'd get ready for davening. So Nachum Chernobyl sitting on the floor in his room, and he's crying, and he's praying for Mashiach. And the innkeeper, or the bed and breakfast owners, the hosts, hear crying from his room. They knock on his room. They come inside. And the guy says, is everything okay? Is your bed not comfortable? I mean, it's a very simple man. But he says, but he sees his guest is crying. What's the matter? He goes, no, I'm just doing a prayer. He goes, what's this prayer? I'm Jewish. I never heard of this prayer. He said, it's called Tikkun Chatzos. He goes, what is it? He goes, we're praying for the temple. We pray for Mashiach to come. He says to him, you want Mashiach to come? He says to this guy, he goes, I don't know. Let me ask my wife. He goes to ask his wife. And his wife says, no, we don't want Mashiach to come. We finally paid off the bed and breakfast. We finally paid things off. We're finally getting the place. We have 3 cows that are giving milk. Everything's running smooth. No, we don't want to. We're happy now. We don't want Mashiach. We don't want to move to Israel. They say we'll move to Israel. He said, we don't want to move. So he comes back and tells my wife said we don't want Mashiach because we don't want to move to Israel now. It's not good timing for us. He says, well, what about the Cossacks? Anytime, the Cossacks come every now and then and kill everybody and wipe everybody out and attack. He says, good question. He asks my wife. He goes to his wife, dutiful man. Goes to his wife, and his wife says, it's a good point. I haven't thought about that. Comes back to the Nachum of Chernobyl. He says, I spoke to my wife. She said she wants Mashiach to come. Let him take all the Cossacks to Israel. We'll stay here. That's the, what would that mean? It's a person doesn't understand what's Mashiach. In other words, Rebbe explained then that people are saying, I'm worried, I'm working on this business project. Rebbe explained the word Geula, which means redemption, and the word Gola is the same exact word. The only difference is the Aleph becomes revealed. The word Gola is Gimel Vav Lamed Hey. The word Geula is Gimel Aleph Vav Lamed Hey. Same exact word. So Geula, redemption, just means we reveal that which was hidden, the presence of God, that which wipes away all the negativity. That means anything good that's in exile will stay. If you paid a get it. You have invested in the project, you get it. You're working on you're painting. Nothing of good, it will be lost. Only goodness will be added. In other words, what's Geula? Geula means letting your true self come out. Who is the true you? Let that be. God created the world. Let the true world come out. The world is meant to be a beautiful place, a pleasant place, where there's no pain and sadness and anxiety and suffering and hardship and animosity and fear and terror and children being exploited. It's a world of good. That is hidden for the last 2,000, 3,000 years. When Mashiach comes, that will no longer be hidden. So what does Geula mean? Revealing the true dimension of the world, the true identity of the world, a beautiful place, God's garden, pleasant garden. So what does Mashiach mean, really? Geula means redemption, revealing that which is concealed. And that happens both in the inner self and ourselves. The Geula has to be revealed, and both, meaning we have to reveal our true identity, whether it's our relationship with our spouse, our children, to show the love, or on a spiritual level, show our relationship to Hashem. Stop living in the exile mentality. Stop having your true soul hidden. Let the truth come out. I just spoke to somebody. Fascinating. Dubi just told me a fascinating thing that he was yesterday. This past week, he went with a bunch of Israelis on this beautiful trip. They went to Utah. Shabbos, they were in this bed and breakfast, where a bunch of them stayed. And the owner of the bed and breakfast, he was Jewish. His wife wasn't, but he was Jewish. He was a guy who's living in this place in the middle of nowhere, Colorado, for 45 years. Doesn't believe in God, doesn't believe in anything Jewish, but he was so enjoyed to have Jewish guests. So he ended up hanging around with them a lot. Shabbos afternoon, they sat and talked for hours and sang Nigunim and songs. It was beautiful, sang a lot of Israeli songs. He said this guy was in such a torn place. Why? On one hand, he didn't want to enjoy it because I don't believe in this stuff, and it's not me, and I don't do this, and I moved on. I don't. At the same time, he was so moved and enjoyed. He said he stuck around for a while. He only sat on the side there, doodling on something on his phone or something for like 2 hours, just listening. He couldn't leave. What is that? Because your true identity is here. This is you. Like they once had an advertisement for years ago. They had an advertisement for Israel trying to get the tourists to come. They had a picture of a scene on a beach where it's a beach chair with just a shadow, no person there. And it says, your soul is here, bring your body. Telling you, come to Israel. Your soul is there. Your soul is waiting for the davening, waiting for the nigun, and waiting for the Shabbos experience. That, unfortunately, sits in exile. We don't let it express itself because there's so many other trauma or angers or frustrations or things. Geula means revealing, redeeming that soul, let it go free. And in the big picture, it means for all the Jewish people. Now let's continue. We're up to in here, and we'll see this is the whole idea. We said, what do you do when a person is trapped because of his behaviors? For the last 30 years, I've been a little callous. I've been indulging in my selfish pursuits, or not even selfish, just self-serving. I'm not selfish, I share. I invite everyone onto my boat, but I've been so busy with indulging in the pleasures, the attractions, the material pursuits, I've become callous to all the spirituality of the world. We said you need to have a circumcision. And the circumcision has two parts. The first part is a part which is called removing the coarse shell, the coarse layer. And the second part is revealing the very fine, very thin layer. What's interesting is, this is one of the rare psukim in the Torah that you actually see a Hasidic interpretation in the simple words. Because the words in the Torah are, one place it says, you shall circumcise your foreskin. But the other two places, it says, umaltem es levav zarach, you should circumcise your heart. How do you circumcise your heart? Obviously, we're talking about a sensitivity in your heart that's not there. The foreskin takes away the sensitivity. It has a cover. Take away the insensitivity, the coarseness that's covering your heart for feeling and experiencing. So you see it in the words of the Chumash. It's not talking about just, you could take the metaphor of a circumcision and say it's talking about some idea spiritually. But the simple words in the puzzle, not when it talks to Abraham, when Hashem is talking to the Jewish people, he said, you shall circumcise the foreskin of your heart. That means God's saying you got to become more in tune, more sensitive, more. But the interesting thing is, one time it says umalta, one time it says you shall circumcise. At one time, the one we quote every year when we come to the month of Elul, Hashem will circumcise your heart and the hearts of your children, which is the acronym of Elul. Es levavchem ve'es levav spells Elul, one of the famous acronyms. But the bottom line is, you see that there's two different roles. Hashem's going to do a circumcision of our heart, and we're going to do a circumcision of our heart. So what is it? It depends, like, who gets there first. It depends, like, who wants the job. The job nobody wants to do. It has to do with this one part that we can do, but there's one part we can't do. And that's what we're going to focus on today. This part that Hashem does that we can't do. We're going to talk about this concept. That's what we're up to. So we started saying that to get to this, what does this do? This releases, this frees, it makes a personal redemption of the soul, that deepest part of my soul that's trapped. The circumcision experience, not talking about the physical act when baby's 8 days old. That's a physical mitzvah. But the spiritual journey of removing your insensitivities, becoming more sensitive and tuned to godliness, or just thinking of a relationship, becoming attuned to the needs of your spouse, of your child, of a parent, being in tune to them, empathize with what they want from you, what they need from you, what you could do for them. No longer about self. I have uncovered that layer of that love in my heart, and I'm expressing it, and that's a true identity, my true relationship with my mother, my true relationship with God, my true relationship with my child. And that is the idea of the circumcision of the heart. And there's two parts. There's a part that we can do, and that is the coarse part. But there's a part that we can't do. What does it mean we can't do it? When it gets to the very sensitive part, you see, to truly, we talk about, Israel going into Gaza now, and going in and taking out, well, they're in Gaza, they're dealing with what they have to deal with. But a lot of people are saying, you know what, it's time to go out. People who don't particularly care for us, or people who are ignorant of the situation, they say, you know what, you did a lot of success, now it's time to leave it, stop it. So many people are dying, Jews, enemies, everyone's dying. It's like saying to a fire department, you came into the house, you put out 80% of the fire. So 20% is left. You did 80%, that's pretty good. You diminish the problem a lot. No, it's foolish. You know why? The second I leave, the fire from 20% expands to the full 100% again. And therefore, out the fire completely, and therefore then it makes a new fire start. When your person removes the negativity in their soul, there's two parts. There's one is the coarse or inappropriate behaviors that I have: selfishness, arrogance, offending other people, indulging where I shouldn't, skipping a blessing, going too fast in my prayers. These are all obvious things. No one has to tell you how to do it. No one has to tell you that you got to do it. You just have to have the strength of character to do it. You got to be motivated. So I'll try not to make fun of people or talk about people or to leave without benching or to eat foods that I shouldn't. Or next time I'll wait the full 6 hours after meat before I eat my chocolate. Whatever it is, I'm going to work on myself. Those are the coarse things, and those get in the way of my sensitivity. Then there are the fine things. I'm having a Danish this morning. Why? Am I just indulging? Or is it good for my day? It's going to put me in a better mood. It's very hard to judge these things. There's a story with the Alter Rebbe. I think it's the Alter Rebbe, if I'm not mistaken, or it's the Middle Rebbe. I think it's the Alter Rebbe. That the Chassidim came to him and they wanted to know, it was one of the Rebbes, I forget which one. They wanted to know, we have to pick a new rabbi for our community. It was a community of very pious, people, very sincere people. And they wanted to pick a rabbi that's appropriate, that has the character, the right level of personality and piety. So he said, ask him to explain the difference. How could you tell if someone's arrogant or someone's humble? And if they give you an answer, it's not the right rabbi for you. He's not the right rabbi. You want someone who can't answer that question. They go around and all the candidates interview great people, and everyone says, oh, well, yeah, here's how you could tell. Finally, the interview, we have Mendel of Vitebsk, one of the great Hasidic masters. He's mentioned the Tanya, part of the Tanya. One of the letters, 27, is written on his passing. I think it's his passing. So they ask him, how can you tell the difference if a person is arrogant or humble? He said, the truth is, it's impossible to tell. Because there are people who look very humble, but their whole humility is part of their journey of self-completion, which means I am very humble. I work on myself to be humble. I make an effort. Sometimes the humility is really not humility. It's very hard to tell because either they don't realize they're not being humble, they don't know what that means, or it's like saying, a guy says, like, I have to make sure when I come through I'm humble. They say the definition of being humble is not to think less of yourself, but to think of yourself less. Don't spend so much time thinking about yourself. Did I get the worst seat in the house? Okay, a humble person would sit even the further back. That means you make yourself into the whole identity of being humble. And sometimes you have someone who looks like he's not humble. He stands up, he gets up and speaks in public, and he gets up and he gets into the community and he puts up a menorah in front of you. And you think this guy is the biggest ego. He thinks he owns the building. He thinks he owns the city. He's the big man on campus. He's the most humble guy. He has to go over and work on himself to stand up in public and do this. You don't know. He says, and the line is so thin that even doesn't know what's right. And the only way to know what's right is God has to direct you to make the right decisions. That's a Mal Hashem Lekechem. Hashem has to do it. There are points in life it's very hard to know. Is it the right thing or the wrong thing? Famous story in question. There was a chassid of the Mittler Rebbe who, the Mittler Rebbe had a rule. And he said that every chassid who wants to come visit me to hear my teachings, on the way home, you have to stop in all the villages you're passing by, or some of the villages, and repeat the teachings to the people. Share it with others. So one guy didn't do it, and he came to the Mittler Rebbe. He says, I'm not going to do it. I said, I'm not going to. He said, respectfully, I don't think I should do it. Why not? He said, I am extremely articulate, and I speak really, really well. And whenever I get up to speak, it gives me ego. And I feel like I'm stopping in all the towns. I'm walking away feeling good about myself, feeling proud of myself. And I walk away, and I don't feel good about that because I know I'm full of myself. I'm not fake, but I recognize my abilities. So the Mittler Rebbe said, which means I'm an onion, but you got to say chassidus. And there's a lot of discussions. What does it mean an onion? Onion means maybe the whole purpose of an onion you put into the soup is not to eat it. It's for the rest of the soup. Most people throw out the onion. Some people say an onion is that it has only layers, that you keep peeling, there's nothing there, only layers. He goes, I don't care if you're all external or you're all not for yourself. It's not about you. It's about the mission. In other words, to know to do that, you have to have a Rebbe. You have to have someone above you to tell you what you should do. Otherwise, maybe I shouldn't give so many classes and these people, these public lectures. Maybe it's not good for my ego. So you have to have a part of yourself where you can't know yourself. God has to give you the wisdom. And that's going to be the part we're going to get to. We're going to see, to get to that particular place, to make the choices on the fine things, you can't do it yourself. God's got to give you the right thing in your head. God's got to put the right thing in your mind and say, God, please help me with the membrane. What does that mean? Help me with the stuff that are very fine, that it's hard to tell the difference. Help me make those decisions. I can't decide. Am I having a lot of guests and it's really not fair to my wife? And how do I know what's right? I mean, I want to have guests. At the same time, my kids always say they want to have no guests. They want time with their family. What's the right thing to do? God, please help me make the right decisions. All these things that come up in life and you can't decide. And they're both coming from very seemingly good places. And one is the right thing, one's the wrong thing, because they can't both be right. Or unless the rabbi tells you, you're right, you're also right, and everyone's right. But which is the right thing for my kids? You have to know, maybe this, maybe that. Those you have to have a godly help, godly assistance. And that's what we're talking about here, the second type of circumcision. So on page 210, I want to see, oh good, you plenty of time to finish this point. All right. So I'm going to, because I spoke a lot outside, I don't want to recap what you learned last week. So that's why I'm going to jump to, in the middle of the page, so it's the last, it's Vihine. If you see it right after a dot, there's a dot and then Vihine. Halfway down page 210, it's in the Hebrew side, Vihine, if you have that, it's right there. Oh, where's my coffee? That was selfish, obviously. All right. Vihine, al milas ha'arla mamish, when it comes to the actual circumcision, sivu maltem es arlas levavchem ata ba'atzmechem. When it comes to the actual course, the force that has to be taken off, both in the sense of the regular bris, but really we're talking here in the actual function of a person's service to Hashem, to refine your heart and to take away the coarse coverings, which are behaviors that are inappropriate or I would say as pasnished. A person like you shouldn't do it. There's different levels. As pasnished means not fitting for you. There's a fascinating story. Just to understand levels of as pasnished. We all have our different layers. What is not appropriate for me to do? To wear a T-shirt, to wear a tank top, what's not appropriate for me. So there's a great chassid who passed away tragically. There's a shliach in Tzfas, Israel, Rabbi Bastrisky, Leil Bastrisky, and he was a great rabbi, very, very loved and special Jew in Tzfas. Unfortunately, he died tragically at a young age. So when he was a young man, about 15 years old, his family, he learned in Bedford Nadine Yeshiva, but he lived at home. Bedford Nadine was like maybe 20-minute walk from his house. He used to sleep at home, but he spent a whole day from the morning till the evening at Bedford Nadine. That means he went to learn chassidus, he had a coffee, he ate breakfast, he davened chakras, he had lunch, he learned, the whole day was there. He had supper there, he came home, and then go to sleep. And he went into Yechidus once with the Rebbe, and it says it bothers him. Here was a guy who was really a fine, just appreciate how a boy he was, a yeshiva student. Told the Rebbe, I have a thing I'm struggling with. I always eat supper in yeshiva. My mother makes yummy food. So when I come home at night, I like to open the fridge and look to see what the kids had for supper. Was it hot dogs? Was it mac and cheese? Was it, I don't know if he gave these examples to the Rebbe, but I like to see because they had a good day what they had. He says, I don't take any, but I can't help myself. I always have to lift up the cover of the pot and see what I missed for supper. So Rebbe responded to him when I was so surprised when I read the story. The Rebbe said to him, one day you're going to grow up and you'll be a rabbi of a city, and you're going to be a leader and a Hasidic guide to the community, and you're going to realize such a behavior passed for such a rabbi. And you think, you tell him, okay, for you, see, you picked up the food. The character of this person was so fine that for me, looking at the pot would be a blessing, because I would take out 3 hot dogs, put mustard on it, a relish, heat up in the microwave, get a piping hot, and eat it while I'm, having a bag of potato chips, because I got to get the full experience. This guy was just looking into the pot to have some, wow, but the Rebbe told him, for you, it's not appropriate. That means, how do I know? Which I would think, okay, big deal. So that's fine. You look at your mother made this up. No, you're indulging in your temptations because he was of a high quality soul. He was a special person. That's a level that who would know if that's right or wrong? I don't know. So we're not talking about that. We're talking about things that you know are not right for you. It's that third hot dog with the relish, with the chips that you don't need to eat, but now you're purely indulging, not even hungry anymore. It's just yummy. And that's an indulgent behavior. So that is the arla you got to do yourself. You got to take care of all those sort of experiences to get them off. But to remove the fine membrane, it's something very difficult for a person to do. That's why it says the Mashiach comes, meaning when you reach the stage of redemption, Hashem will do it for you. What's Hashem going to do? Hashem says, you listen, you do the big work. You do the job of the heavy, thick, coarse job. You do that. I'll take care of the fine tunes, meaning I'll already turn the light on for you. I'll help you reveal your soul. Because what's the result of this behavior? Removing the coarse layer and the fine layer reveals my true self. I go free. My soul expresses. No longer have a hindrance. I no longer coarse. No longer have something blocking my eyes. And that leads you to la'avas Hashem alekecha, to love Hashem your God b'chol levavcha with all your heart, u'b'chol nafshecha with all your soul, leman chayecha, because this is your life. What does it mean? Leman chayecha is an unbelievable idea. And this is where you really understand the idea. What does it mean it's my life? You ask God, what's your life? Some people, my life is sports. I never miss a sports game. I have a good friend of mine who I put film with every week. And he tells me he went to almost every World Series, one of the World Series games since he's like a teenager. And he doesn't miss any of these games. And he always follows this. He is living, his life is baseball. His life is this. And he's like probably 60 years old. His life is baseball. It's your life. When you find out my life, you ask any parent, what's your life, my child? My whole world's my child. They say this is something usually they say after someone passes away, not when you're alive. When you're alive, you don't know it. After, what's the biggest comment you can say standing, but God forbid, by a funeral, he loved, his world was his children. How many times I heard that? His world was his children. It's true. Sometimes you don't see it. So reveal that truth, that they are your life. They are the most important thing in the world for you. They are your everything. That's Leman Chayecha. What's your life? And that's what we say, that what does it mean to reveal your truth and go free? Redemption. When you realize that God is my life. My whole world is my life. My whole world is God. My whole world is putting on Phil another chance to do a mitzvah. I just saw so many chassidim and people and pious people in history who their whole lives, nothing else mattered. It doesn't mean they didn't brush their teeth, God forbid, or wear clean clothes. It means that wasn't them. That was things they did, technically. My identity was my learning, my davening, my et cetera, et cetera. Kloim, I mean to say, Laman ki Hashem levad yikol chayechem mamish. Hashem alone is your entire life. Shelachein ahava zui me'umka deliba. This is what reveals from the true depth of our hearts. Menekuda pnimius mamish kanal. Like we said before, that's the true. We said before that the very beginning of this chapter, this letter, the Alter Rebbe writes that just like a temple had the inner altar and the outer altar, we have in our hearts the inner part of our hearts, our true self, and our added self. Like our true self is my kid's getting married. I'm gonna have to ask, or someone has to ask me, are you going to the wedding? I don't understand the question. Why? It's a question. Because it's not a rational reason I'm going to the wedding. If it was rational, I'd have to have a reason. Why are you going to the wedding? Oh, because I love him so much, so I'm going to go. Oh, that's such a nice thing. I think you should have a nice trip. It's not a question. Why not? Because it's my relationship with my child and the reasons I'm going are not irrational. It's above that. Whereas if it's my cousin getting married, you know what? We are close. We kept in touch. That cousin, not so much. This one, yeah, I'm going to travel. This one's in Chicago. So there's calculations. When your true relationship is revealed, there's no more. This is what it means. Above rationale. Ulamaila bebchinas hadas, and that means you're getting above das. This is the key point I want to get to. You're above the world of logic, above the world of rationale. And this is now the famous quote that people quote all the time in the world of study, but now we can understand that it says, Mashiach ba behesach hadas l'kol Yisrael. That's why it says Mashiach will come behesach hadas. Hesach hadas, literally, whenever we read the statement before this is inside right here, hesach hadas means Mashiach, and it says three things happen to a person without them planning. Mashiach coming, finding a lost thing, not yours, of course, finding something that's lost. Hey, I found someone's wallet. And like a scorpion bite or a bee sting. No one says, I'm scheduled about 4 o'clock to get a scorpion bite. Oh, it's late. Oh, there it ouch. No, it says it's going to happen when you least expect it. No one expects to get today bitten by a bee, unless the guy maybe is stirring a bee's nest. Same thing, it says finding something. Who walks down the street and saying, I should be finding something about 5 minutes? Hey, there it is. You're walking down the street. You happen to find something that's unexpected. And Mashiach also is going to come unexpected. We're going to be thinking, it's another day. Yeah, the rabbis told us, but it's easier. As a matter of fact, people came to Chabad and said, stop talking so much about Mashiach. You're pushing him away. Everyone's going to be focused on it. He's not going to come. We said, don't worry. It's like, I think I said this story once. The Rabbi Moshe was talking about Mashiach very strongly, that we have to believe, and that Mashiach is coming today. So there was an older rabbi there. This was like, 1970s. There's an older rabbi who was there, and between the talks, he came to the Rebbe and he said, you've talked about this so much. I think people got the message. We believe Mashiach is coming. So the Rebbe said, you think it's effective? Like you believe? He said, of course. The Rebbe said, can I ask you, would you lend a friend $1,000 and he'll pay you back when Mashiach comes? The guy says, let me think about that. He goes, we still got to talk. Meaning, how certain are you? So the question is it, how much, where's that, it has to be to a point that, so Mashiach's coming, don't worry. With all of our awareness, we're still not expecting it mamish. A lot of us will say, someone's Mashiach's here, go, yeah, cool. It's like, finally, I was waiting 20 minutes. When he comes, we'll be excited and happy. But so that's the definition at a simple level. On a deeper level, Hesach Das means when Mashiach comes, we're no longer going to have das. Das means our logic. We're not going to believe in God anymore because of logic. It's like if you were told that somewhere in the Mequon or somewhere in this giant field, there's a big pot of gold. Yeah, I believe it. Now, someone shows you the spot. They say, hey, there's the gold. Now, no longer you have to be convinced. How do you know there's gold? Well, I'll tell you. You see, I like a calculation that statistically there's a certain amount of gold in the world. Because I saw it. I don't have to have any. Once you see something, no longer does it require someone to explain it to you, to prove it. And if someone disproves it to you, someone says, I'll tell you why it can't be there. Because there's $1 billion and it can't be a bit. I saw it, I believe it. Even though today with AI, I don't know why I can believe it anymore. But the idea of seeing something for real, knowing something by seeing it, is absolute above rationale. There's no logic you can tell me. The famous example you used to hear in yeshiva was where the teacher tells us that someone tells you the guy jumped from the floor onto the top of a 2-story building. I don't know if I believe it or not. But if I see it, or if I believe it, someone could come to me and convince you why it's not possible. But if I saw it, with all the logic in the world, it can't change our mind. Because I saw the guy do it. You tell me it's impossible? I don't know how he did it. I don't know what his trick was, but I saw him do it. I watched him jump up. So in other words, there are things that once you see it, it's no more logical. The awareness of Mashiach is going to be that we'll see Mashiach, and that we'll see the experience, godliness. No longer will be anything blocking our view of truth. That means no more das. No more am I believing in God because it makes sense, and I believe in God because there has to be a creator. Who else could design such a complicated world? I just see it. It's no longer das. And that's what it says. Mashiach's coming will bring Hesach Hadas to all the Jewish people. And what does that mean? It means that's going to be the going out of our personal, internal exile, that my heart and my soul and myself will really see God. I will go out of the public, the grand galus. No longer will there be darkness in the world. No longer will things be concealed. We'll actually have the ability to see and know and be aware in an irrational way, not foolish, but super rational, above rational, that it's obvious and clear to us, this is my life, this is the truth, this is God. Now, the question is, and this is what we're going to start with next week, is like this. We really have this moment of Mashiach, of redemption, every single day. And to appreciate how we have it every single day for a short amount of time. We say this eternal Mashiach, meaning my own journey, and we're going to understand right through there the connection to tzedakah. That's what we're going to, and that's going to be the whole chapter together. So we understand now, we started off, this question was, what's the connection between redemption and tzedakah? So first we explain what's redemption. Redemption means uncovering your true self. So if you want to sum up the entire paragraph until now, redemption means revealing your true self, revealing the grand redemption is, in the big world, that God's true self revealed. The world's true identity revealed. It's not just a bunch of biological or technical matter. It's actually godliness in the world. So this journey, this story, is what we're coming to conclude with, why explaining how did tzedakah bring that about. That will do, God willing, next week.